right, folks, here we are at the top of the hour. And once again, thank you everybody for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is a deep dive into Microsoft Defender for Office 365. Once again, thank you for being here. My name is David Fantham. I'm a senior product manager on the MDO team. I've been on the product now for about 5 years and really happy to have the opportunity to talk with you this morning. I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues on the chat here as well. As John Engels mentioned, if you have questions as we go through, please do feel free to post them in the chat. We will do our best to answer them there. And a little forward reference to another session that we have immediately following this one. There is a Ask the Experts for all of MDO immediately following that. So I put the session ID in the chat, and we'll have Grish Shander, who's our partner GPM, who owns all of MDO, is going to be doing a quick little forward. And then we should have a good majority of the team there as well to answer questions, including the attack simulation team as well. So with no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. So today we're going to be talking about just a broader product of Microsoft Defender for Office. And with that, generally, we need to focus on some of the challenges that we're attempting to solve in securing our environment. And our environment is broadly defined as both email as well as collaboration. As you'll see, MDO goes broader than just Exchange and email because attackers don't think in sense of products or pieces of software. They think in graphs. They'll get in as much as they can, and we really need to be as holistic in both our protection as well as our response capabilities and workflows within the product as well. It's a challenge securing all of collaboration. So the threat landscape continues to evolve. Attackers constantly poke and try and find new ways into the organization. They develop and become more sophisticated, and we have to step up to the challenge as well to continue to protect and secure a broader and more growing attack surface. Correlation of signals is tough. We hear from our customers time and time again that signal overload, alert overload. So MDO and some of the capabilities that we'll talk about attempts to help relieve that capability of it being time consuming, it being overwhelming, as well as being expensive. And then also disparate solutions are a huge challenge. You know, we speak to customers in and out that have upwards of 10, 15, 20 disparate point security solutions. So MDO in collaboration with the Microsoft 365 Defender suite and our XDR plus SIEM capabilities are trying to solve this and giving a single point of security solutions that are comprehensive in protecting your environment across a variety of different areas. I mean, the landscape in general, we still see this statistic is a little bit old from a 2021 Verizon data breach and some data from the FBI, but we still see about 91% of cyber attacks start in email. The threat vector is just too widely available. There's still a lot of practices out there that allow attackers to get in to end users, and we see them continually spin up brand new domains. So the infrastructure is being abused to attack end users, and there's a ton of loss that's attributed to email-based attacks. So this is just the business email compromise, or BEC. 1.8 billion was lost in BEC compromise alone in 2020, and there was upwards, I believe, about 26 billion in 2016. So 1.8 billion is just a small portion of how bad this has been since about the 2016 days. And then Microsoft is, again, continuously trying to take down phishing sites. In 2021, we took down almost 170,000 sites alone, and that number continues to grow. So given the threat landscape is broad, given that attackers are sophisticated, why do customers choose Microsoft? Why Microsoft Defender for Office? So we've been chosen as a leader in some of the Forrester email security waves in 2021, as well as the M365 Defender XDR capability, which we'll talk about, which complements and gives a more holistic approach to security across the Microsoft suite. Also was named a leader in the first XDR quadrant that Forrester released in 2021. And then as of late, within the past 3 or 4 months as well, MDO also got a AAA protection rating from a public SE Labs study as well. So we are industry leading when it comes to email security. We stand holistically in front of the efficacy and efficiency of our product. And we believe that it really helps in both efficiency as well as cost savings. So there was another total economic impact study that was released by Forrester that showed some significant improvements for customers as they moved onto our product to help save against malicious links, improve investigation time with a lot of the automation and response capabilities we've built out into our product, as well as helping reduce the risk of breach as well. So why Microsoft? I think we're well attuned with how well Microsoft has the breadth of our product, but we do have some unique advantages, starting with our native protection. So our solution within Microsoft Defender for Office isn't just limited to email. I know we are in the Exchange conference, but the protection has to be broader than just email because the attack vector is just broader than email. So all of our protection against threats natively goes out into all of Office 365. So that includes OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, all of the Office apps as well. It's really just a pretty simple click of a button that helps protection across all of these different email and collaboration suites. And we have an integrated approach. So it's really just helping reduce the complexity of onboarding. There is no agents that need to be installed on mailboxes. Because we host the mailboxes, we have the advantage of actually owning the Exchange service as well. MDO seamlessly integrates directly into Office 365 as well as Exchange, and it's built-in protection. So no plugins, no customization is needed. It just works on configuration. Scale of service is another thing that we do incredibly well at Microsoft. So the signal and the breadth of signal that we see, given that we have a significant amount of coverage across hosting email servers in Exchange, as well as in our consumer practice, just the breadth of signal we get from email alone is pretty significant. We see trillions and trillions of signals coming from across the Microsoft security graph. So this breadth of signal goes outside of just Office. It extends out into all of the other areas that Microsoft lives. So Azure, the rest of the M365 Defender suite, Edge, Smart Screen, we have a pretty wide and deep signal base. We also have a multi-layered approach. So it includes a lot of AI and automation into how we approach protection. We'll go slightly into a bit of a deep dive into our protection stack here, as well as some powerful automation. So we'll deep dive a little bit later on into how we've automated some response capabilities into how our customers and SecOps teams can respond to threats in Office 365 as well as in Exchange. And then finally, we believe we have a comprehensive approach. So we take this kind of holistic circular journey around how we believe customers can best utilize Defender for Office and secure their email and collaboration space from prevention to detection, investigation, hunting, response, and then rounding it out with awareness and training and secure posture. So all of these things coupled with our commitment to research across these fronts. So Microsoft security research has been a significant investment from Defender as well as the M365 Defender space, where we spend more than about $1 billion a year on research alone. Setting the tone just a little bit more on where MDO fits into the M365 Defender space. So MDO is the email and collab kind of pillar on the far right, but it also includes our protection across identities with Defender for Identity, endpoints for Defender for Endpoints, and cloud apps for Defender for Cloud Apps. This is something that we've done recently in bringing everything together under the M365 Defender space in our security journey, as well as integrating directly into native connectors into Sentinel as well. So all of this really brings together the broad M365 Defender journey, but we're going to focus for the most part on the email and collaboration space today, touching briefly on some of the other M365 Defender spaces as well. All right, we're going to jump right in. We're going to move across this comprehensive protection in the same way that attacker might. So we're looking at how we can protect across the entire kill chain, starting with prevention. We believe that since no security solution is 100% effective, and it's really important customers also come with sort of a assume breach mindset. This means that our tool set has to be able to move across the kill chain from prevention to response and remediation as well. And then finally, we'll round out with some awareness and training. Starting with the prevention stack. So we think of our multi-layered protection stack in about 4 different high-level buckets. So we have our edge protection, sender intelligence, content filtering, as well as post-delivery protection. So the edge protection is really just the first line of defense that we have. And this is where we deploy a lot of the breadth and depth of the email signal that we see across all of Exchange, across all of consumer, as well as across the whole Microsoft security graph space. So we can do things like throttling. We have great domain and IP rep we can apply. And this is really just a lot of known bad that we can drop at the edge and not even consume the time of admins of having to investigate or take a look at what's getting caught from known bad spaces. And we do have some protection as well in place around directory-based. There's some directory harvesting, there's some backscatter protection, as well as a few other bits on the edge that we do to make sure that there is no discovery occurring on our Office 365 and our Exchange customers. Moving into the sender intelligence layer, this is where we apply a lot of our AI and ML. So starting with our account compromise detection, we have a whole bunch of inbound and outbound signal that we use. And I'll touch on this a little bit later as well, but we apply a lot of the sender graph, how we understand people operate within the Office 365 and Exchange space. So if we see anomalous behavior that goes outside of normal sending patterns, coupled with our signals of malicious or suspicious content, and we have some really good account compromise detection that we can apply inbound and outbound, as well as people trying to abuse the service. So tenant to tenant within Office 365, we have even stronger signals we can use to protect against compromise. The next components are mostly applying some industry standards around email authentication. So we do have DMARC, DKIM, SBF, as well as ARC, which is a new industry standard which we implemented recently to help improve deliverability around the lack of adoption for the first three. So SBF, DKIM, and DMARC around whether the level of adoption or them getting broken, various complex routing or manipulation of messages in routing capabilities. We know that there is challenges there. So we implemented both ARC as well as our spoof intelligence capabilities. So spoof intelligence is the MDO AI that we layer on top of sender intelligence, say how good or how bad does the authentication based on our learnings across all of Office 365 help us with deterministically saying whether the message is good or bad. Of course, we have a whole bunch of bulk filtering, as well as some more business email compromise protections around impersonation. So impersonation, there's a whole bunch of different flavors that we have here, but our mailbox intelligence and intelligence impersonation protection is around how well can we detect whether or not someone is trying to impersonate someone that you frequently interact with. So we learn based on your sender graph. So for example, John Engels, one of my coworkers, or Urgers that's on the chat, I email back and forth with them. I collaborate with them frequently. If someone tried to ping me from a john.engels1111@yahoo.com, mailbox impersonation learns my sender graph and will protect against those types of attacks. As we see this coming often in things like gift cards or wire transfer fraud, where someone will attempt to impersonate, say, a CEO or a priority account within organizations and try and squeak out some money from the intended victim. We also have some configurable back protections within impersonation. So the user impersonation outside of the learned experience of knowing who I send with, our organizations can set up their user impersonation to say, don't allow impersonation against Satya Nadella to David. While I may not email with Satya directly often, our organizations can set up these usually publicly visible or targeted users so that the entire organization can't have these types of BEC or impersonation style attacks. And then finally, domain impersonation. These are lookalike style attacks where we don't want end users or customers getting emails from domains that look similar to or very close to some of their own domains or domains that they might frequently interact with. There's another one in here as well, which we kind of colloquially refer to as brand impersonation, which is around the commonly notable brands that customers and end users may be used to. These are things like Amazon, PayPal, DocuSign. So a lot of the commodity style domain impersonation, we also protect against those out of the box. Moving into some of our content filtering, of course, we have a lot of the standard type blocking, AV engines, as well as some customized transport rules that customers can utilize to block various content within their organizations, as well as moving over to a lot of the ML models and clustering we do around URLs and attachments. There's a whole bunch of blocking and customization that customers can use for content filtering. But really, as we move over to the right side of that content filtering, some of the most important and key protection we have against these types of IOC-based attacks is our detonation capabilities. So this is what we refer to as our safe attachments, which is our file and attachment-based protection, and safe links, which is our URL-based attachments, where we extract the content, send it off to our detonation chamber, we detonate the content, chase it down as far as it can go. We do a whole bunch of evasion tactics so that if the attackers are trying to detect whether or not the content is being extracted and detonated inside our detonation chamber, and we deterministically can say whether or not that content is good or bad. This happens both at time of delivery for email. It happens for anomalous behavior and some of the coverage we have within the Office 365 collaboration suites. So if somebody is sharing files to guests, it's adding users to channels, we will do anomalous behavior detection and detonate content there as well. And there's a great segue into the post-delivery protection as well. So safe links, we have time of click protection. We see a common attack vector as people will weaponize URLs post-delivery. We also do redetonation at time of click to make sure that nothing has changed. The content at the other side of that URL hasn't been modified, and we'll chase down linked content as well. So URLs pointing to files, files to URLs, all the way down the chain. We'll chase them as far as we can take them. We also have something we call 0-hour auto purge, which I think is one of the most phenomenally named acronyms we use within Microsoft Defender for Office. 0-hour auto purge, or ZAP, which is the sound I imagine doing when we remove messages from the inbox post-delivery. This is when we find that a message has either been weaponized or our TI has been updated post-delivery, where we'll phish, malware, or spam, as well as campaigns will reach into the inbox, both within the tenant from which we derive the signal, as well as globally, which is super powerful. This is one of the automated post-delivery protection as well as recovery capabilities we have to self-heal. So if we learn something has become malicious after the fact, we will go ahead and reach into the inbox and move it out to the destination that the admins configure within their respective policies. Campaigns is another capability that we will take a look at a little bit further on, but it's how we can use clustering and AI to go outside of a lot of the deterministic or IOC-based detections. So we can see how campaigns are morphing over time and see how attackers are changing infrastructure, changing domains, changing IOCs, and we'll wrap them up into a nice little bow and present them, as well as protect against them and use ZAP to recover from them. And again, we have all the post-delivery protection out into Office clients, OneDrive and SharePoint. Time of click protection within the Office apps also exists. It's not just something that happens in Mailflow, but really this is truly comprehensive across the Office 365 space as well. That was a mouthful, but that is just how we approach a multi-layer protection stack, from edge protection down to sender intelligence, content filtering, and post-delivery protection across the board. I'm happy to take any more questions as we move on, or in the Ask the Expert as well. So with all of that guidance, right, some of them are covered with individual policies. What we've done is we've created a simplified configuration guidance. So we want to help customers adopt the latest and greatest, what we call our preset security policies. We know that all these presets can be complicated. It can be a challenge to keep up with the latest and greatest. So you can kind of set and forget when it comes to keeping up with all the protections across MDO. You can scope in users or domains to either standard protection or strict protection. Strict protection just kind of turns up some of how strict or aggressive we are with some of our ML models in terms of protection to balance that false positive or false negative that you and your admins know within your organization fits your environment. And this really helps customers understand if they have appropriate coverage. And the next thing that we have as well is a configuration analyzer, which is kind of the flip side of utilizing our policy templates. This helps you understand how well you're utilizing all the various policies and prevention mechanisms within MDO. So this can run against your existing configurations for spam, for phishing, for malware, for safe links, safe attachments, to see how well you kind of bump up against what's recommended by Microsoft. This is a great way for you to see recommendations and adopt more appropriate posture within your organization. I already gave a little bit of a nod to some of our compromised and credential phishing protection and account takeover. So we do have a whole bunch of machine learning that understands what I've referred to as the sender graph. So we understand what is normal sending behavior outside of just deterministic IOC-based verdicts or content verdicts to be able to detect, stop, and help remediate against credential phishing, account takeover, and compromise. Nice animation that I'm skipping over. And then again, like I said, we have protection beyond email. So all of our time of delivery as well as our time of click protection extends beyond email out into Teams, into SharePoint, into OneDrive, and into the Office apps as well. Moving over to detection. So now we're moving down into the kill chain. So we do have comprehensive ways for how customers can detect morphing campaigns. So our campaign views utilizes some of our AI to be able to kind of show how attackers are morphing and to try and avoid some of the conventional security products. So this is a way for us to show how things are changing over time, to understand what sender IPs, domains, URLs, what we thought of the messages and what we did with them after the fact as well. So campaigns is not only a great way to detect, but it also helps show how much we have caught and remediated against within the product as well. Of course, we have detailed alerts. So our alerting capabilities are twofold. We have some out-of-the-box system alerts that give you coverage against all sorts of threats within the email and collaboration space, as well as custom alerting capabilities. So we have native MDO custom alerting capabilities, which you can use to configure any sort of alert, as well as some custom detections, which live within our advanced hunting capability. If you come from an MDE world or any of the other M365 Defender space, NBO is a first-class citizen within advanced hunting. So we have all of the custom detection capabilities. And I'll touch on that a little bit later on as well once we get into hunting and investigation. All of the alerts also goes past time of delivery. So we have content weaponization for post-delivery alerting. This is mostly around URL clicks. This is a great way for admins to understand if someone may have exposure or have been compromised from clicking on malicious links or violated one of their protection policies by clicking through a potentially malicious link. And then finally, we also have threat analytics. So threat analytics is another awesome way for admins to understand the threat landscape and deterministically say the impact on their organization. So Microsoft Security Research puts out these threat analytics write-ups on a pretty regular basis. And you can see the impact on the email and collab space within MDO to see if emails were delivered with any of the IOCs from the known bad actors, or if there was any impact in terms of alerts or incidents within your organization. And then finally, one thing that I wanted to highlight is within detection. So we have all these protection capabilities. We have the preset templates that your organization can use, and we also have very granular policies you can use to configure protection within your organization. A great way to manage that is by using dedicated end user quarantine policies. So when you're sending malicious or suspicious mail into the quarantine based on verdicts of spam, phish, high confidence phish, or malware, you can say who and when end users can access these messages within quarantine. So can they see the content if it's spam? Can they request release if it's only spam? Can they view the message? We have this kind of granular capability for our organization to help manage the detections and help drive efficiency within their response capabilities as well. Moving on to investigation and hunting. So one of the things that we've been focusing on recently is prioritizing the focus of investigation and hunting through the lens of the impacted users and mailboxes. So MDO is now utilizing a very similar construct that exists in other Microsoft worlds. The Mac or Admin Center has this concept of priority accounts. We also have adopted a similar concept to help give a more targeted lens onto how hunting and investigation happens. So we have one out of the box mailbox tag, which is a priority account. You can also create custom tags to create subdivisions. There could be sensitive departments within your organization that you want to tag. And all of these tags will start showing up in downstream investigation and hunting capabilities. So it shows up within Explorer when you're doing guided hunting. It shows up in our alerting capabilities in case a priority account or a sensitive user clicks on a malicious URL. It helps you focus and prioritize your response workflows. It also shows up through things like reporting and quarantine and just about every experience that is meaningful and significant for investigation to give you that real focused and prioritized lens to how you respond. In terms of driving signal, this is another awesome thing that we have within MDO and Office 365. We have user submissions built natively into Outlook. So there's a Report Now button that helps us source signal from end users, both in your organization as well as globally. This is a great FN and FP, a false negative and false positive feedback loop for us. We have a pretty broad security research team that's constantly analyzing these reported messages back to Microsoft, and it helps us learn and improve our protection. So there is a lot of benefit, not only to our end users, but also to the broader ecosystem to have more and more people reporting this phish. And there's also ways for admins to directly do this within the portal as well. So end users can do it directly inline and natively from the Outlook capabilities and various clients, as well as admins can do it from MDO and the experience itself. So they can say, hey, Microsoft, here's an email that I want to submit back to you. I'm going to submit it back as being a false positive, and I want to tell you why. It goes to our graders. Our graders will grade the message and will respond and then percolate the signal and TI throughout the broader ecosystem as well. So a lot of benefit to this. It helps us with a good feedback loop from an investigation capability and is really the base for Microsoft to learn and get better over time. Threat Explorer is kind of the core component of our guided hunting capability. So Threat Explorer or Explorer is our real-time hunting canvas. You can hunt over all email within your Office 365 tenant. We have a few pivots around phish and malware, and we're introducing one around URL clicks as well. But this is a really great way for customers to hunt over this data in real time and respond to threats as well. I'll give a nod a little bit later, but inline actions are available at scale here to move messages either from inbox to deleted items or the other way around as a part of your FN or FP response workflows. We also have advanced hunting, so for more sophisticated queries. So Explorer is our guided hunting. It's kind of a click-based drop-down experience, but advanced hunting is a KQL or Kusto query language-based hunting experience where you can hunt over email events, URL events, attachment events, post-delivery events, so things like Zap. And we just introduced a brand new table around URL clicks as well. So you can hunt in real time over URL clicks for threats and really apply that knowledge of your organization to find potential issues or threats as well. One thing that's worth mentioning in advanced hunting, at the beginning of the presentation, we talked about how Defender for Office fits into the broader M365 Defender space. This is one of the most powerful tools to join signals across the broader Defender ecosystem. So you can join events from MDO to MDE, to MDI, to MDCA. It's really, really powerful hunting tool to be able to say, show me if a URL showed up in an email, tell me if it was clicked, show me which device it connected to help be comprehensive in answering those questions and responding to threats within your organization. One of the things that's super powerful here as well is you can set up what's called custom detections. So anything you can create a KQL query out of, you can set an alert off of as well. So you can, for that exact same scenario where it said, if this user clicks on a URL, is determined as bad, and there's a device that responded to it, fire an alert and tell us what to do with it. So there's some really awesome capabilities that also include self-healing. So in that scenario, you can alert, and you can also remediate by deleting the message, quarantining the machine, et cetera. So some awesome capabilities out of advanced hunting that give you both breadth across M365 Defender and depth within Defender for Office. And then one other thing that we really like to help customers be well aware of is what we call our email entity. So the email entity is kind of the core 360 view of what Defender for Office knows about that message. So you can get to it from any experience that has an email involved. So from reporting, from quarantine, from submissions, from hunting, you can get to this page and understand both from a timeline perspective what happened. So original delivery, were there clicks? Was the message moved by an admin? Were there user reports? Did the message get remediated after the fact? As well as all of the analysis and information that we know about that message. So were there threats involved? What were some of the authentication? It's Microsoft's attempt to pull critical information out of the headers. So you no longer have to extract the headers, look at the headers to really understand what happened. So we really, really like this experience. We've gotten some awesome feedback. And one other really cool thing that is also in this experience as well is what we call detonation details. So if the message has been detonated within your tenant in the detonation chamber via safe links or safe attachments, we will show you further analysis of what happened. So we'll give you the detonation chain to show you how the URL morphed over time. We'll show you observables we saw within the detonation chamber, as well as screenshots for admins to be able to understand what happens at time of detonation and see why Microsoft delivered the verdict that it did. So there's some reasoning behind this as well. And we're constantly learning, updating, and improving this experience as well. Within response and remediation, we have inline actions available, both within guided and advanced hunting. So guided being Explorer and advanced hunting being the KQL-based experiences. You can self-heal or remediate inline. So if you're hunting, you find a bunch of threats, or if there is a potential false positive, you can move those messages at scale directly in line from our hunting capabilities, or spin up automation. So you can also trigger investigations in line from our hunting experiences, which helps automate what MDO believes is kind of the common security operations investigation type. So we'll spin up an investigation. We'll take a look at the metadata of the email. We'll do clustering and provide kind of a buttoned up holistic view on what we believed happened, as well as actions that the admin can take. We also have a centralized action queue. So this again is another nod to our unified approach here to MDO plus the M365 Defender ecosystem. So any of those pending actions that need to be taken within the MDO space show up in the pending queue. And this is where you can see all actions that need attention from admins, not only from MDO, but also from MBE or MDI or any of the M365 Defender suite. I gave a little bit of a nod to the automated response playbooks. This is what we call AIR. This is, again, a bunch of playbooks that trigger off of alerts within the MDO space. So in the case of the malicious URL click alerts or scenario we described earlier, automation or AIR playbooks will spin up to do investigation on behalf of your organization. So within the AIR playbook itself, we'll go investigate the sender, the message, who clicked, give our determination on whether or not that end user who clicked on the URL is now compromised based on our knowledge and understanding of their sending and receiving patterns. And we'll propose a bunch of actions for the admins to take. So this is really us doing a lot of the legwork to help save time, as well as be more comprehensive in your investigation to give a better sense of what happened. And we'll wrap it all up. We'll kind of show what threats we found, as well as actions for the admin to review and then approve to get back to a healthy state. The highest level of kind of container that we use to tell the story of a kill chain within MDO, as well as within the M365 Defender space, is what we call an incident. So incidents is, again, not just a MDO construct, but it's an M365 Defender-wide construct, where our research team will correlate alerts and signals together to tell the story of a kill chain. So if you're just triaging alerts alone, it's really hard to understand how alerts are connected. Do we have commonalities in the impacted users, the impacted mailboxes, the IOCs that were used, The incident is a way that Microsoft does a lot of the heavy lifting for our customers to stitch together the kill chain, the attack story, as well as give a tied up and kind of buttoned up way to respond and remediate to those threats. So really, some of the power that we showcase here is how research can correlate those signals and say this alert and this alert are connected because of these reasons, or create brand new alerts with the knowledge and research that we have within M365 to tell a much more comprehensive story. So if you haven't already looked at incidents within your organizations, this is really the first step in triaging and responding and remediating to threats, because Microsoft has done a lot of the legwork on behalf of our customers. And then finally, Zap, we talked about this earlier, but this is our automated self-healing capability. It takes a whole variety of actions and moving messages based on the verdict, and you can configure them based on the policies you have within Office 365. And this is a really powerful tool that we use to self-heal and respond to threats across the board. And then one quick nod that I wanted to give as well. We have been investing heavily in APIs as well in Defender. So we have some of our legacy standalone APIs. So there's a submission API within Graph. We have a whole bunch of endpoints within the Office 365 management API around alerts, around detections, around AIR. But what we've done recently is combining all of the MDO signals from alerts to incidents to hunting into the M365 Defender APIs. So we have a combined incident queue API. We have the advanced hunting API, as well as the streaming API that you can take real-time events out into your own storage. We see customers utilize a combination of these, but one of the most common use cases, say, for the streaming API is if you want to retain data for longer than Microsoft will retain it for. So we see a lot of customers want to hunt over more than 30 days of data. They might want to retain email data for longer than 30 days. All of these APIs are a great way for you to either integrate into your SIEM, into your SOAR, into your own ticketing system, or retain data for your own workflows for longer than Microsoft may do on your behalf. Back to our scheduled programming. So rounding this out, we kind of started with our protection. We've gone into detection, hunting, investigation, and response. Now we're coming back around this circle of how we think about holistic protection from Microsoft Defender for Office in awareness and training. So Attack Simulator is our simulation and training capability, which helps kind of empower our end users to identify and respond against attacks. Because as we saw at the very beginning of this presentation, it's incredibly prolific for how attackers will utilize email. And in some cases, our end users are last line of defense, either to identify something as malicious, report it back to help with the signal sharing. It really is a key component of how we can round out this kind of continuum of protection within the email and collaboration space. We've entirely redesigned the attack sim within Defender for Office over the past couple of years. So there's a whole bunch of new and improved capabilities here for how you can tackle the complexity of training. So you can craft a whole bunch of various phishing simulation capabilities, as well as utilize the entire Terra Nova catalog that we have purchased here as well. And there's a whole bunch of dynamic training. So all of the security catalog is available. It's available in 12+ languages, and it's highly interactive. So you can use it to deploy a whole bunch of different content within your organization and track it in line as well. So within the M365 Security Center, there's a whole bunch of detailed reporting and insights. It can help you craft how you need to change or modify your simulation across your organization, and then gain visibility into who's completed it, who clicked, potentially who you need to start tagging for highly susceptible end users. So this is a great feedback loop into some of your investigation and response workflows that we spoke about earlier as well. One other note here, there's a whole bunch of new capabilities. There was another session, which actually, Urja or John, if you could drop that in the chat. I know Brandon Kohler did a session on Attack Sim as well here in MEC. So if you want some more information, You can either come to the Ask the Experts, but there was a full dedicated session on AttackSim. We've been investing heavily in this area and have a whole bunch of awesome, cool new capabilities around taking templates of real attacks, spitting them into simulation and training with a click of a button. There's some really awesome capabilities. So if someone on the chat could post that session ID, I would greatly appreciate it. We do think broader than just the AttackSim, though, when we're talking about awareness and training. So one of the capabilities that we have within Office 365, which really differentiates us against our competitors, is not only do we own the mailboxes in Exchange, but we also have capabilities to do things natively within the client as well. So there's ways to foster user awareness in client with things like link wrapping within safe links, with things like safety tips as well at the top of the message. It's indications or indicators that we know based on our telemetry of the message that we can give to the end users to make better decisions about how they interact with the content, with the email, even if it's just enough to give them a bit of pause to take a look at it. The best outcome we have here is that we kind of create this a better awareness for our end users to determine legitimacy, use the reported message, or potentially just think twice about clicking on that really suspicious URL. And then finally, as we move on to secure posture, so the most important thing that I think we want to make sure that we're staying on top of is continuous improvement. So we do have detailed reporting around all of the protection that we have within Office 365 and Defender for Office. The reporting goes into threat protection. We have some post-delivery protection. There's a whole bunch of reporting capabilities to visualize threats, help improve and get better over time. We also have a way to best manage overrides for various scenarios and security services you may utilize. So if you have a custom mailbox that you're utilizing for end users to send suspicious emails to be analyzed, or if you're using a attack simulation capability, we have a way for you to set up this advanced delivery policy to make sure that those messages aren't impacted by those types of normal rhythm of business activities. So we've seen a lot of issues in the past where overrides are problematic for our customers. They can poke holes into your protection stack. And we're trying to move away from best practice being using the best tool at hand, which about 5 years ago was the sender allow or domain allow, which we know is incredibly problematic when it comes to being holistic and comprehensive in protection. So this really is ensuring that legacy overrides are no longer needed for things that we believe are malicious. We also have a couple other things that help with secure posture. So we have ways for end users to now say whether or not they're allowed to set up forwarding. Thank you, John, for putting the session into the chat for AST. But we have a way for us to add stricter outcomes for high confidence phish, high confidence spam, as well as whether or not end users are allowed to set up forwarding. So we've seen that one of the most common attack vectors that attackers will utilize is by trying to set up auto forwarding on a compromised mailbox. So we've set up a policy that disables that by default so that customers cannot implement kind of that extraction mechanism within the Office 365 organization. Rounding us back out, so this is kind of the full holistic view. You know, we started with our protection, we moved on to detection, our hunting and investigation, remediation and response, awareness, simulation, and finally back to secure posture. This is kind of the 360 view of how we think about having a secure enterprise within Microsoft's Defender for Office 365. We've gone beyond just email and collaboration, talking about M365 Defender and how MDO fits into the broader M365 story with XDR and SIEM, and much more to go. So I really appreciate everybody joining today. That is the end of the planned content. We got about 5 minutes left, 2, 3 nods, and then I'll open it up to see if John or anybody else has seen any questions that we want to address now. The attack sim training session that I forward referenced, John put the link in the chat. Urja and Tommy did a deep dive into business email compromise. That session is also there. And then I forward referenced at the very beginning, we have the Ask the Expert session coming up here in 15 minutes. I'll repost that, or if John or someone could snag that session that I put at the top of the chat as well. So thank you so much. Is there any, John or anyone, was there any questions? Manfred, I see you responding to a few questions. Is there anything that is unanswered?
I think we got everything else. I'll just post up the other link here in a second to the upcoming aspects.
Beautiful. Great. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate it. We'll get 4 minutes back. I know sessions are back to back to back. So take a breather. Hope you enjoy the rest of your MEC conference, and come join us in the Ask the Experts here in 14 minutes. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thanks.